I know a lot of you guys are suggesting a lot of ideas. I'm not ignoring any of them, but this one just hit the mark. But it's not like I couldn't come up with it myself. I absolutely could. But it's all about karma. Okay, so let's go. We have talked about B.B. Lal and his contributions to Indian archaeology and history many times in this channel. Be it Ram Mandir or the historicity of Mahabharata or the invasion theory or the history of Vedic period in India, there is a strong reason for that. There was a historical gap between the understanding of our history from the decline of the Harappan civilization and the ancient empires like the Mauryan Empire in 321 BCE. That is from 2000 BCE to 300 or 400 BCE. And there are several centuries in that time frame which was known as the Dark Age of the Indian subcontinent because of the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization, and so the historians or the archaeologists must have thought that that was a dormant period in the Indian history. But it was B.B. Lal who first set out to explore that period in the Bharatiya history and also attempt to know our ancestry. The first excavation done by B.B. Lal in lines with that was in 1950 to 1952, and he started his excavation at Hastinapur in Meerut, UP, which was one of the capital cities mentioned in the Mahabharata epic. And the excavation of B.B. Lal followed an excavation that happened in Ahichatra in Bareilly in 1944, which was the excavation where the painted grey ware was discovered for the first time ever. But they could not make any conclusive connections with any cultures whatsoever, until of course B.B. Lal's excavations. But now you must be wondering, but what is so special about this painted grey ware? I will tell you. The painted grey ware is a very finely made smooth pots or ceramic pots that were grey in color and with a lot of motifs on them. Now, the making of the clay itself is a very well thought out and planned process. The University of Manitoba in Canada says that the color of pottery, which gives it its name, is affected by the method in which it's fired, as the iron oxide content in clay will react to the amount of oxygen inside the kiln. But it's very difficult to get the grey color because if the temperature is increased or if the reduced atmosphere in the kiln is not conducive, then the chances are that the pot will turn black. So you can only get that specific color by keeping the amount of oxygen going inside the kiln through some way. So that means that this is an advanced technique of making these pots. There are actually a lot of researchers who have attempted to recreate the painted grey ware, and they have found that the reduction of a thinly distributed small percent of iron oxide in the clay helped in achieving the grey color. It indicates an advanced industry of pottery, and it indicates the presence of advanced kilns and of course a very profound understanding of the scientific or the chemical composition of clay and the materials used so as to attain this specific color. Now let's see what else B.B. Lal found about the painted grey ware culture in his excavation and a lot of other excavations that followed. There were actually 4 trenches which indicated the presence of 5 occupational periods with definite breaks between them. The first period was represented by the occupation with a crude ochre-colored pottery, and this ochre-colored pottery culture later on becomes very important, as we saw in the last video. If you haven't checked it out, please go. Now, the second period was categorized by the definitive presence of the painted grey ware. But this period ends with a flood which was correlated by B.B. Lal to the great flood mentioned in the Mahabharata epic. There was a short break for a period, and then the third occupation starts, which is called the northern black polished ware culture. Later, people well within the historical period followed at the site the last occupation, which took place after a long break of several years, dated to the period of the Delhi Sultanate. I don't understand what that means, so you interpret it in your own way. So the conclusions that B.B. Lal arrived at based on this excavation: first, there is a presence of a painted grey ware culture that could correlate with the Mahabharata, and it was dated back to 1100 to 800 BCE. There have been over 1,000 sites where the painted grey ware has been found. They expanded to Harappa in Pakistan, on the dried banks of Khadar Hagra in the west to Kaushambi in the east, from Jammu in the north and to Kayata in the south. Beyond that, we don't know anything much about this culture, how it evolved, or what are its regional or local traditions, and so on. Once again, for that, we really need to do a lot more archaeological research on our ancestry, basically. There were co-occurrence of the painted grey ware artifacts and the artifacts from the Harappan civilization in Bikaner and in Punjab. But from the excavation in Rupar, it was evident that they were not connected at all. Rather, there was a big break between these cultures. But the distribution of the pottery is virtually coterminous with the land Brahmavarta and the Brahmarshi Desa, held holy in Aryan literature, and they all belonged to the banks of the 7 holy rivers mentioned in the Vedic texts. Now, the painted grey ware pottery technology did not just end with the flood. It was transmitted to the next cultures that were formed in the same place, especially the cultures like the northern black polished ware cultures. And that also shows that the painted grey ware culture could have been the Vedic period. Why? Because we are still following the same traditions and the same philosophy and the same way of life which was given to us in the Vedic period. So the continuation also means that the painted grey ware culture could have been the Vedic period. The Rigvedic period, according to the scholars, comes somewhere around 1500 BC to 1200 BC, and the later Abrahamic Upanishad culture between 800 and 500 BC, which means that from 1500 BCE to 800 BCE it could have been the Vedic period. And this is also the time when the painted grey ware culture was also mapped. Another very important reason why the PGW could have been the Vedic period is obviously the use of iron, because they used a lot of iron for a lot of things: weaponry, agriculture, domestication, and everything. So what was the life like for the people inhabiting the painted grey ware culture? Well, they were rural in nature. There were mud and mud brick houses, embankments, and wattle and dwarf structures. So all of these studies that happened from 1950s indicates a 3-tier settlement. Large size settlements surrounded by smaller settlements measuring 1 to 4 hectares. There are no big architectural features like fortification or big palaces, temples kind of things. The painted grey ware culture is responsible for the large-scale cultivation and domestication of animals in the Ganga-Yamuna river basin, which continues to date. Animals basically included everything we see today, from dogs to cows, but not cats. Well, cats domesticated us, not the other way around. Hunting and fishing was also very prominent. The people in this culture were proficient in ceramics, iron, copper, glass, bone. So it was your basic rural community, the likes of which you could actually see to date. Two distinct features are very important in the painted grey ware culture. One is the presence and the domestication of horses, and second, the use of iron. Iron was used, copper was also used a great deal, but iron was also a major part of their toolkit and arsenal. So that is a very distinctive feature which they don't find in the previous cultures. Like we saw before, the painted grey ware culture was immediately preceded by the ochre colored pottery culture, and it was succeeded by the northern black polished ware culture, and with overlaps between them in some places, but not conclusive. But of course, these are all just surface level information on these cultures. There need to be a lot of research and a lot of understanding into them to really understand our own history. We don't know much about where these people came from, how they happened to settle here. In order to do that, more research needs to go into the Pakistan side of the evidences. We don't know the ways of life, the culture, etc. of the people, how the political and social structures were, but it is quite evident that it was on the painted grey ware culture that all these subsequent civilizations and culture came, including the Mahajanapadas and the rest of the civilizations as we see today. I was planning to also touch upon the ochre colored pottery culture in this video, but this is long enough. That's why I'm stopping it with just this culture. And it's not because I'm lazy to do more research or to talk about. So we will talk about the OCP culture in the next video if nothing else came up. So I hope you found this video interesting and informative, and please add your comments below. Like it's evident, I read all your comments and I respond to whatever I can. So that's it for today. Have an awesome time. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. More videos are coming. So bye bye. Hi guys, and here is the first book I have written, Life in a Ziploc Bag. Please check it out on Amazon or Flipkart. And it's also available for direct buying from the publisher itself. All these links are given in the description. Grab your copy now. Thank you.